Hello, everybody. Welcome to Catholic Truth Family, where we talk about love, relationships, dating, engagement, marriage, kids, and more. Today, we are giving you 7 tips for engagement. Or if you're already married, you can still apply these principles to have a happy marriage as well, though it may be a little bit more difficult depending on where you fall in the marriage realm. And as always, we have Julie Loin joining us. She is the wonderful mother of 4. Oh, make that 5. She just had a new baby, and so did we. They're about the same age. And we're happy to have her back on to share her wisdom, her motherly wisdom with us. So thank you for joining us, Julie.
Thanks, Brian. I'm so excited to be back.
Yes, we're always happy to have you. You're a regular, almost like that close to like co-host. I feel like you're on all the time.
Oh, that's an honor.
But yeah, we're going to be talking about engagement today because so many people, 50% of couples who get engaged end up getting divorced. I don't know if people realize that. And second of all, many people who get married just don't make it. Like a lot of people don't understand what it takes to go into marriage. And I heard a story of this girl and she's like, oh, I'm going to get married someday, but I was like, yeah, but you go to like parties and like raves and like you live it up. And, like, she's like, yeah, like 10 years, but I'll settle down and stuff. And you may hear my baby in the background. And 10 years, she's like, I'll settle down. I'm like, but if you're fostering 10 years of partying and raves and, possibly sleeping around with people and all these other things, are you just going to settle down? Is that how it works? Or are you fostering bad habits now that are going to be almost impossible to break later? See, Greg Popcak, who's a Catholic psychologist, he says great marriages don't just happen, they're made. In other words, they don't start when you get married. Marriage starts beforehand in the preparation process. And I'm going to get my baby because she's crying.
And she's adorable. I'll let
you. Thank you. Her uncombed, unkempt hair. Do you want to say hi to everybody? Huh?
Oh, so, she is just so sweet.
Marriage starts in the engagement process. It starts before, and it starts with planning. It starts with prayer, and it starts with all the tips that we're going to give today. Did you have any thoughts before we get started?
Oh my goodness. I feel like you've already said so much that my brain is just has so many thoughts going, and all these documentaries I've been watching, I'm like, everything's coming to mind. There's just so much that I think people will take from this. And like you said, it's for engagement, but also marriage. Oh, look at that face. Oh, if anyone's not watching this on YouTube, turn off the podcast and turn it on YouTube. It's so sweet.
Oh, she loves to look at me now. She notices people.
Oh, Gabriella, you're so sweet.
So yeah, the first tip that we want to give you right off the bat, people, is an obvious one. If you're engaged, if you're looking to be married, you're excited about it. And the first thing that we want to say is do everything together. We just made a video, so maybe you saw it. We'll give you a quick recap here. But I've heard so many times that, the wedding is the woman's day, so she gets to make all the decisions. And I say, why? Aren't 2 people getting married? Isn't it 2 people? Does he not have a say? Well, no, not really, because the woman's been thinking about it since she was like 6 years old, and she's been dreaming about it ever since. And so she deserves to get all that. And I'm like, you guys are in for a rocky ride. I know people have gotten everything and we're, divorced in a year.
Yeah, I feel like when you go with that mentality of it's about the day, that's already telling me you have the false idea of what marriage is, because it's not about the day. It's about the life that you're about to have with this person. So if you're focused on my perfect day, my perfect dress, of course, those things are wonderful. I enjoyed our wedding day tremendously. It was unbelievable. It was the perfect day. But if that's what your focus is, if that's what your goal is to have that perfect day, of course, you're going to be disappointed because everything else can't compare to this high level. I mean, it's a beautiful day, but if that's what you expect marriage to always be like, you're in for a disappointment. The ins and outs will be a problem.
Yeah. So we always recommend praying together and planning together and growing together and some other tips that we're going to be giving. But first of all, if you don't pray as a couple, what are you doing? If you're a godly Catholic couple, you should be praying, and often, because you're not just dating anymore. I don't recommend having long praying sessions while you're dating, oh Lord, help us to have 6 kids. And, we just want to pray for each other's future house. And you're not even married yet, but you're praying, acting like you are. No. But when you're engaged, start praying together, start creating that foundation that you want to last for the rest of your life. And as they say, you know, the family that prays together stays together. That's only half true. It's actually not even true, because there's lots of couples that pray, and there's lots of couples that, you know, are spiritual. They're Catholic. And I know so many Catholics that get divorced because they have mental health issues they're not dealing with. They have baggage they haven't dealt with. They have toxic aspects of their personality or their character that they haven't dealt with. They've justified, they've explained away. Well, I'm Italian, I just have a temper, or I just drink, you know, and they just have these excuses about why they do things. And these are toxic. You can be as Catholic as you want, but if you haven't dealt with your issues, then you're not going to have a good marriage. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
It is a good point, though. It's such a good point. And just to touch on that, if you're not dealing with yourself, how can you love your spouse fully? If you are not in tune with God and the needs that you have, if you're blocking away the things that need healing, or you're kind of pushing them down, your spouse is the person that's going to have to deal with that. Your spouse is the one that's going to have to try to quote unquote fix you, which is impossible. So now you've turned them into your God. Now you've turned them into something they are never meant to be. So you make such a good point, Brian.
Or if they're not your God and the one who's going to fix you, they're the one who's going to suffer because of you, and vice versa, perhaps, if they've done the same thing. But the bottom line is we really need to pray, not just together, but on our own. We have to have a prayer life. And this sounds obvious, but literally so many people get so busy planning, working, doing everything that they forget to pray. That's literally the opposite of the first commandment, which is to put God first, not last, first, not a few minutes before you go to bed at night. First. And so
I wonder too, sorry, Brian, I wonder too, if people are uncomfortable with it, you know, because maybe that's not normal for them. Maybe they've never prayed with someone. And so it could actually be just a really hard starting point for them. What do I do? How do I pray with my significant other, my fiance, my boyfriend or girlfriend? And your levels of prayer will be different if you're dating versus engaged versus marriage. But it starts easy. You can start with a fixed prayer. You could start with something that's already been given, the Our Father, Hail Mary, or you could do spontaneous prayer. I'm literally teaching those things to my second grader right now. We're talking about fixed prayer and spontaneous prayer. So, I mean, if you need help knowing, well, fine, you say I need to pray with them. What do I say? Grab their hands, close your eyes, either do a fixed prayer if you're comfortable with that. Our Father, Hail Mary, do a rosary. If that's too much, you could just say simple glory be together. Start small, but then maybe work into spontaneous. Mike and I will oftentimes at the end of our prayer, we'll do a spontaneous prayer where we're talking about the things, you know, God, watch over these people, help us in our marriage, watch over our children. So then we get into the spontaneous prayer after that.
Yeah, and you could pray for anything that you want, like, oh, Lord, help us to be good, you know, parents, help me to be a good husband and a good father. Please give me wisdom, knowledge, you know, and I want to pray for my future wife here too. You know, God, please guide her, please help her. Like you pray for yourself and you pray for each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing. The second thing is, you know, planning the actual wedding together, making decisions together, not just saying, oh, it's the woman's day, but actually take a hand at it. Many men, as I said in the last video, are too happy to sit back and let the women do everything. And then women are too happy to take the reins and do everything and not give him much of an opinion. But in reality, me and my wife had so many issues in engagement, not before. They all came out in engagement just because we had a different way of doing things. We had a different understanding of things. We had different opinions, and we had to learn conflict resolution. We had to learn communication, healthy communication. We had to learn what it does and does not trigger the other person and lead them to get upset, and really try to avoid those things. And these are great lessons that you want to learn before marriage. The more you can learn, foster, and cultivate these things before marriage, the happier marriage you're going to be. Because, I mean, things only... this is going to sound terrible, but things only get worse when you get married. Like you're at your high, you're at your peak in a sense, like you're in love, you're on cloud nine, you know, you don't even see in reality half the time just because I just love the person and they're perfect, you know, but it gets more difficult. Like if you have baggage that you're bringing with you into marriage, most people think it goes away when you get married. Oh, I finally found the love of my lifetime, I'm going to be happy. No, psychology says marriage amplifies your garbage. It amplifies your internal crap and it makes it worse. So if you haven't dealt with it and you haven't learned these conflict resolutions, communication, if you haven't made these super highly effective habits for married couples, you're going to have a much tougher time in marriage, especially being happy and staying married.
Yeah, I actually spoke with someone recently where her husband said, I was kind of hoping you'd fix me. I married you because I was hopeful that your faith and your strength would fix me. And it's like, oh, that is such a backwards way of looking at things because
It's
again,
idolatry.
it is. And again, you're looking at this person now as God. You're looking at this person now as the one I go to for healing and to find my completion, to find my
Hmm.
everything. And I think a lot of couples too, it like you were saying, Brian, that the day's the woman's day. And so once the girl has planned her perfect wedding and now it's her day, you go up on the altar and these two people who are standing before each other, it's kind of like, well, if that's how I'm planning my wedding, then that's kind of how I'm going to look at my marriage. It's about me. It's about what I need. It's about what I'm going to expect of you as my spouse. And so again, it's a twisted look at what it's meant to be. So if we look at, yes, it's a day for the two of you. I remember Mike and I, we went to pick out music together and we listened to it. And we actually, my husband is not a crier and he'd probably be mortified I said this, but we actually both like teared up listening to the music I was going to walk down the aisle to. And it was such a moment between us as we were preparing for our big day that would have been missed had I been like, well, I'm just going to pick it myself. I'm just going to do this on my own. And instead, then when I'm walking down the aisle, like we're both like, tearing up because it reminded us of that moment. And we had that together. And I feel like on that day, if you pick things together, it means more. You're coming together with God now as the three of you are coming to become one. God has to be involved in all of this as well. And I think a lot of people forget that piece too. Not only do you need to plan it with your spouse, you plan it with God, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as I said, selfishness, control, these are not things that you want to bring into a marriage. They're not, virtues, first of
Yeah.
all, that you want to cultivate. And also laziness and sloth are things that you don't want to cultivate either. I mean, seriously, like just, oh, well, she can do it. I don't care. Well, that's going to be your attitude for a lot of the marriage. And a woman's eventually going to, regret it and, even perhaps become bitter over it. Why doesn't he do anything? I have to literally just get him to do stuff. Well, I've worked hard. She can do it. Why? Because she's always done it. And whereas, she might say, oh, why is he so lazy? And why is she so naggy? And it's just, if you do it together, you learn all about each other, the good and the bad. Literally, you need to learn the good and the bad before marriage because sometimes it's not supposed to. Hi, Sophia. It's not supposed to be meant to be, and you want to know that before you get going and have that hardship. I know so many Catholic couples that only lasted 5 years, 3 years, 1 year because they just didn't do it the right way. They flew through it. They went so fast. They thought once they get married, it will just all of a sudden just work. It doesn't. It's the biggest decision you'll ever make. Take your time, slow down, and really create a good, firm foundation. Don't blow through engagement.
Right. And you made a point right at the beginning that I've been thinking a lot about is this idea of I'm going to wait also. So you say slow down, which I totally agree with. And you have the opposite side of I'm going to wait until my career is established. I'm going to wait until I have some money. I'm going to wait until I've, done what I want to do. And then I'll finally look for that person. I'll settle down. I'll start having kids. But by that point, sometimes it's too late. So, I mean, not too late for marriage, but sometimes it's too late for family. Sometimes it takes a long time to find that person you want to spend the rest of your life with. Sometimes those people have been kind of picked off a little bit. And then you also have this idea of, I'm going to wait to have kids. Now you're 37, 38. You find out you have infertility. You have all these issues. And now what are you going to do? And so slow down when you meet the person, make sure they're the right one, but don't wait too long to pray for God to find that person for you. And I think our culture right now is so heavy in our work and our career and establishing ourselves in this world. And that's a way of life that people are choosing. I'd rather be established and have money than settle down and find someone that completes this journey and that I'm going to go on this journey with. And Mike and I were listening to a documentary. I wish I could think of it right now, but I can't. And it's this decline that's happening so drastically amongst the youth right now. Nobody wants to settle down and get married. They're like, I'll get there. And they don't understand that it's not really how it works.
And it's the same selfishness, control, sloth, and laziness. Everything I just mentioned, you literally just mentioned in reverse, like control. Selfishness. I'll do it when I want to do it. I want to do my career first. It's all about me. It's not about you. Marriage is literally the opposite of that. And that, which is why so many fail, because it's not about you. It's about the other person 100% completely. And for people who say, oh, it's just about me, I don't want to be chained down, this and this is why they fail. But also the laziness as well, like, oh, I just don't care, I'll do it later. All of these are major character flaws that we want to know. And if you fly through the engagement process, if you fly through dating, let's just get married. We're both Catholic. We both know it. God spoke to me. No, in very rare cases, maybe, but in general, it doesn't really work that way. And I've told many women and many men that, so we have to be careful. So tip number 3 is in planning your wedding together, but grow together, prepare together, work on yourself together. For example, it really heats me up to know that it takes 8 years to become a priest, 12 years for some cases like Jesuits, 8 years to become a nun. You have to do all these things, and then you get a weekend for married couples. Are you serious? They give us a weekend, and we're supposed to just know what to do for the rest of our life? They train priests and nuns. They give us nothing. Our marriage encounter, our marriage prep was a absolute laughable joke. And every Catholic says that. It's just useless. My priest said, just go there. If you can get anything out of it, great. If not, don't worry about it. He's like, more than but he's like, it's a joke. But bottom line is, my wife and I still wanted to know what we needed to do to have a happy marriage, And so we took the marriage prep books that they gave us for that weekend that they went through like 3 pages of, and we went through some pages every single time that we met together. We asked questions about each other. What do you think about finances? What are your fears? Right. What are your worries? How do you see finances in the future? Or, how do you see my in-laws? Are you comfortable with them? Do you like them? Do you not like them? What's some things that you don't like? So these things, probe and promote conversation. And some things were really shocking that came out of us, because we didn't agree on. And that's good. It brings out communication. You work through it, you deal with it together, and you become better. They say that like communication, financial issues, children, religious issues, and cheating are generally the highest reasons for divorce. Religion is not on the list anymore. It used to be. Now ironically, in place of that is cheating and just being bored and not being happy in marriage. Gee, I wonder why.
Right.
But that's why we're doing what we're doing here.
Right.
But these are the things that we do ahead of time. We prepare, we read, we study, we grow, we ask questions, we talk about these things, we work through them. It's all important.
Yeah. Yeah. We had Father Peter Towsley. I don't know where he is anymore, but he was our spiritual director. He met Mike somewhere, and he immediately became just this like father figure to both of us and just guided us through. He was with Mother Teresa for some time. Like, this man was, he's amazing. So he helped Mike and I a lot, because our dating was so rocky as Mike was trying to figure out, is he supposed to be a priest? Is he going to get married? And it was treacherous. It was so hard. And then when we got engaged, it was almost like freedom was given to Mike, where he was like, okay, I made my decision. I'm really like excited to move forward. He needed that, like, this is the choice I'm going with. And Father Peter just helped guide us through all that. I remember all that
for him.
Oh my gosh, Brian, it was so difficult. And thank God we got through it, because it was so hard. But I just remember Father Peter, just especially one point in our dating, to go back, he was like, you two are you're so intense. Like, just have fun, enjoy each other. And we were both like, we can do that.
Oh,
like,
my gosh. That's so true. I used to counsel Catholics all the time with that. I was like, especially when women go out on a date with a man, like the first date, they're like, I don't know if I can marry him. I don't know if he's, how is he going to be with kids? Right. What if we don't? I'm like, shh, stop the madness. That's literally right. It's the first date. Dating is supposed to be fun, enjoyable. You get to know the person. You're not getting married tomorrow. You're not signing a contract. Way too many Catholics are so uptight about it. And
so uptight.
Oh my gosh, they can't even see clearly because of it.
No, there's a like you're praying through it, you're discerning through it, but that's what it is. It's a discernment time. And even engagement is in a way a discernment time because like you're saying, Brian, a lot of
Yes.
these questions are coming up. So it's not like, oh, I'm engaged, I'm stuck with this person as questions are coming up and you're like, oh, we don't agree on anything. This person is not who I thought they were as you're going through the process. That's okay. That's what it's for. But it also is a way to clarify, okay, how are we going to communicate? How are we going to grow together? And one of the things,
Can I just say something on that, if you
yeah,
don't mind?
of
It might be the
course.
first thing we've ever disagreed on. And I don't know if we fully disagree. It's just a slight
Oh,
difference.
yeah.
Um, or maybe it's just maybe it's just a different way of looking at it.
I'm
But
so intrigued, Brian. I hope your listeners are too. Here we go.
and you can let me know what you think too, and tell me I'm wrong.
I
But
will.
I've always been of the mindset. Well, let me just say that I agree with you in some sense that engagement is for discernment in some sense, but in a larger sense, I don't agree with that because I feel like you should have already discerned that before engagement. You should have already got to know the person before engagement. You should have already gone through a lot of this stuff before asking. Because if I'm a guy and I'm asking that girl, I've literally asked her to marry me. I've asked her to be my spouse. And while it's not set in stone and there are exceptions, as a general rule, too many Catholics get engaged as, oh, well, I still have time to think about it. No, you just proposed to them. You've won their heart. You've asked them this. And I don't think you should be playing with that. You know, it's set in stone, and except for if some stuff comes out that you didn't know before. But in general, I like to see these things done before engagement, as a
I
rule.
100% agree with you. Actually, there's no disagreement. I see it as a broken world, and I see it as broken women, broken men who are dating, and they're like, well, this seems like the next thing we're supposed to do. And I've heard that a lot where they'll be like,
Right.
well, we've been dating so long, it's time. I got to put a ring on it. You know, it's like this is what I got to do. And so then they do. And now it's like, well, I'm stuck because I made a bad decision saying yes to this person. And so I guess in that way, that's where I want your listeners to know you're not married yet. And so if yes, you rush through the dating or this person pretended to be this person the whole time and all of a sudden these issues are coming up, you haven't married this person yet. For a couple who did things the right way, and I don't know if I love saying that, but for the couple who did things the right way, they discerned during dating. They went through all the things during dating. They weren't having premarital sex. They weren't doing all these things that are going to cause problems in your relationship. Yes, the engagement, like when Mike and I were engaged, that was it. That was we were that was it. It was like a relief for both of us. Like this is where God's taking us, and we knew it. It was such a peace, and there was so much joy. But for a lot of people, it's almost backwards, it seems.
Yeah, no, for sure. Did you have any other thoughts on that before we go on to the next one?
No, that's great. So we
Okay.
we agreed, Brian. I think we agreed on that one, but
Yes, we
with a
agree
slight,
that there's nuances, but in general, in an ideal world, it should be done ahead of time.
I like it. I like it.
And if stuff does come up in engagement that is toxic or that you didn't notice, and this is why you're doing these things, then yeah, you do want to get out. You don't want to live with that for the rest of your life. Some people have the false mindset that, well, we're going to be married. You know what? So I have to learn to live with this. I have to learn to just deal with them. No, you don't. And maybe you shouldn't ever. Yes, there's a book called Boundaries in Dating, which I highly recommend for dating engaged couples. And also, for Better Forever. These are two great books. But in Boundaries in Dating, there's a chapter on things that you should live with and can live with, and things you should never live with. One of them being that you can live with is, people's quirky personalities, mild control. They have some mild intimacy issues. There's things that everyone has that they can work through. But there's other things that are deal breakers, character flaws, toxic bombs ready to explode. And you never want to justify these actions like lying, cheating, major control issues, things like that. You don't want to justify these issues. So yeah, you don't want any of these hardcore problems because, there's a chapter that says adapt now, pay later. Yeah, you adapt now, you have some fun times now, it's really good now, and then you spend the rest of your life miserable. And that is not what you want.
Right. And on that, when we try to fix the other person, I promise you it will never work. There will never be a moment where what you do is going to fix that person. So we talked at the beginning, if you go in with this idea that like, I'll be fixed within this marriage, or I'll be able to fix him, I'll be able to help him with his problems. He's got these addictions, he has these false ideas of what women are and all that, but it's fine because once we're married, it'll all change. It's all going to disappear, and that's obviously never going to happen. And I think if we can have that mind frame and those clear views, then we can know, is God calling me to be with this person or not? And you talked about their quirks. Everyone has quirks. Everybody has it. I mean, except for me, obviously. But it's this idea that
obviously
we cannot fix these major issues, but can I live with these little quirks? Most people can. No one is going to be perfect.
Yeah, and there's way too many Catholic women, from what I hear, the man who expects men to be perfect and riding in on a white horse and sweep them up off their feet like these silly romance movies and that sort of stuff. And it's just this emotional pornography, as Dr. Greg Bottaro calls it, just is toxic for marriage, and he draws the distinctions between, normal pornography, regular pornography, but just one's of the mind, one's of the body, but both are toxic in different ways. And, we really need to work on ourselves. We need to work on our issues. Excuse me. We need to work on us. Even before we get to the stage where we grow through these things together, the best thing you could ever do is go to counseling if you need to, pick up self-help books on anger, if that's your issue, on lust, if that's your issue, intimacy issues, if that's your issue, communication, if that's your issue. Oh my God, I don't communicate. Well, then don't get married, because that's what marriage is. It's a relationship where you communicate. It's like you need to do it. And it's hard. And there's many times we need to get outside of ourselves in marriage. And that's another tip we'll get to in a second, but that's learn to sacrifice. Learn to sacrifice. Learn to, as they say in the weightlifting world, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Pain is gain. And it's the same thing in marriage too. Only pain and only being uncomfortable and only sacrificing leads to the hot mountaintop highs over and over and over again. Then you go back down and you do the work and you grudge and you push along and you sacrifice and it's suffering, but then you get up to the high mountains again and you're higher than ever before. And it just keeps going that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when you put the work and the effort into it, I think, Brian, you said at some point, there's only like 7% of married couples have like this top tier marriage. It's those people, they didn't just like walk into marriage and it just poof, it was perfect. It's sacrifice. Like anything, if you want to be good at anything, you have to put the effort, the work, the sacrifice. You have to work on yourself. You have to want this. You have to fight for it. Right now, I'm talking with with someone. Her husband has given up, and so I'm kind of trying to help her through this really hard time. Her husband just gave up. He's like, I'm out. I'm done. And what do? You can't force it. So she's like, fine, I'll work on myself. I can't force you into this marriage, but she is going above and beyond. What have I done? She's reflecting back. What have I done? And of course, I keep reminding her, this isn't your fault. When someone gives up, there's something going on. But I keep reminding her, I'm like, you're putting the effort into healing yourself through all of this. And what a gift. Yeah. So in talking with her, I feel like it's just this reiteration of you can't fix the other person. There's nothing you can do. So letting God reveal to you your own heart and what your needs are is just, it's going to be a game changer in your marriage.
Yeah, your husband's mother, who was kind of my spiritual advisor growing up, actually it was your husband's father who told me. He's like, there's 3 things you want to look for in a spouse. He's like, number 1, obviously someone who believes in God and follows God. But the second one I can't remember, but the third one stuck out to me. He's like, someone who's willing to adapt, to change, to work on themselves, and to grow. He's like, you do not want to get into marriage with someone with a stubborn mule who will not change and is going to make you suffer for the rest of your life. So you want to find someone who can adapt and grow and change, never gets tired of working on themselves. And I've really tried to apply that in my own life. I try never to get tired of working on myself. I'm always working on myself. I'm always trying to change my idiosyncrasies and, problems and things like that. And we need to be people like that, but we also need to find people like that. There's way too many people who say, well, I'm just Irish. I just get drunk, or I'm Italian. I have a temper, or, I'm German. I'm thick-headed, or I'm a man. I just have those needs. We just throw these things out rather than actually changing ourselves and working on it. We throw out these things which show that we're lazy, not willing to do the work, and not willing to better ourselves for the sake of love. So do we even love?
Right. Yeah. I think the self-help part, when I feel like I'm in a rut, when I feel like I'm in that place, I put on every podcast I could possibly find where I'm like, okay, I need growth. So like you said, Brian, you have to be able to see yourself. You have to be able to look at yourself and say, where am I failing my spouse? Where am I failing my children? And I guarantee we all are, we all will be. And I know right now, I don't know if you've heard of Restore the Glory podcast. It's so good about just helping you to kind of find your story and find who you are so you could be a better person towards those around you. So if you're getting ready for marriage, if you're in the engagement process, what better thing is to be able to heal those things so you can love better.
Amen. And I can say that in my own life, that I went to counseling before marriage, and, because I didn't want to screw it up like my parents screwed theirs up. They had like nothing in common, and they had many issues. And I did too, consequently. And so I had to go to counseling before marriage and work on these things that I knew I had issues with that were toxic. And I wanted to become better. And I think that we all should, pick up a book, read books, like study these things. Like there are books on everything you're dealing with, or nowadays it's videos. And like you can watch videos on YouTube and find things that you're struggling with. I used to watch, like motivational videos, or like Tony Robbins, or, something like when I was down and struggling, I would, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or whatever else, just to try to like get myself, inspire myself, get points to work on myself. But the more we do this before marriage, the better it's going to be. And then the last thing I'll say is just sacrifice. Do things every day that you don't like. Literally do things every day that you don't like. If you come home and you've had a long day and you don't feel like washing the dishes, go wash the dishes. And if you have a really long day, you come home and you have to mow the lawn, and it's the last thing you ever want to do. Go mow the lawn. Do something hard that you don't want to do every day, and then make it twice a day. Do 2 hard things a day. After I was doing this for a long time before marriage, and after 6 months of it, the hard things weren't even hard anymore. And I was happy to take on challenges. I was happy to do things I didn't feel like doing because I was in the habit of doing it. Literally, let me tell you, and Julie, you can tell me more so you have more kids, but marriage every single day is filled with things you don't want to do. And the fact that you do them and do them joyfully is love. And if you don't do that, the opposite is you can build up resentment, bitterness. You lose yourself. You turn into this selfish woman, like Eat, Pray, Love, where she leaves her family and goes in towards the world instead of doing what's right. And you don't want to go and end up going there.
No, so I don't always do things with great love or with joy, but I do them. And I think that might in itself just be
it's the ideal.
The ideal. And I think too, just doing it is love in of itself. So doing the laundry, doing the dishes, doing the day-to-day grind, teaching the kids, we homeschool. So the everyday, there's good days and there's bad days, but if you can't find the joy in those little moments, it's going to be rough. So you have to be able to adapt to what you're doing. Just like you said, Brian, you have to be able to adapt.
Yeah. And my wife and I had kids way later in marriage because my wife had a lot of health issues and things like that. And you get used to living single, you get used to being spoiled, and then kids come and destroy all that. And they destroy your whole life, and people warn you of that, but it's a good thing because it needs to be destroyed. Unless you die, you just remain a grain of wheat. But if a grain of wheat dies, it bears fruit to 100 to eternity. It's like we have to die to ourselves, and we have to grow.
I would be the laziest human being if I did not have children. I love binge watching TV. I love potato chips. I love, there's so many things where I'm like, my children have literally saved me from myself because they draw out of you and they bring so much. And yes, it's so hard and it's sticky and it's messy and there's poop everywhere, as Brother Pius always says. There's poop everywhere because his sister has 4 kids. And he's like, I don't know what to do with this. It is crazy. It is chaotic. but it is what is going to literally bring me to heaven. What else would I want to invest my life in than that? There's nothing better than investing in having children and having a spouse and working on yourself. But career won't do it. Money won't do it. Having fun side projects are great, but they're not going to lead you to heaven. These are the things, the ins and outs that will draw you to Christ, to that cross.
It's funny you just said the children, the career. I don't know if you saw that article that came out recently of the lady from Sex and the City. She came out and she just said, she spent her whole life doing her career. Now she actually regrets not getting married, seriously regrets not having kids. She wished she had done those things. She got too preoccupied, and so many people fall into that category. But the bottom line is sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. Love is sacrifice. Padre Pio said, the more you love someone, the more you're willing to sacrifice for them. And Christ said, you need to pick up your cross daily and follow me. So that's not just in marriage. It's out of marriage. It's all the time. But we can start the hard work of marriage now. There will be more joy in marriage if you do the hard things now. You won't be so, why does this always happen? Oh, why are my kids bugging me? Why don't they just shut up? We just get so annoyed with them, because to be purified of our selfishness is hard.
It's so painful.
It's so painful. But once you do and you open up to reality, it gets a lot better. You expand your heart. You love more. And you become more like Christ. And that's what we want. So the first thing is sacrifice. The second thing is doing it well. And the third thing is finding joy in it. That's the hardest part, is being joyful in everything. Offer it all up out of love for Christ. And like you said, it's not always joyful. Sometimes it hurts, but we can still offer it up knowing that it brings a smile to God's face.
Oh, exactly. And even though I joked about, so I don't always do it with joy, there's an underlining sense of joy in knowing you're doing what God is asking of you. So even though I'm not, happy-go-lucky all the time, I try to be joyful around the kids, especially. But if I can't have that, at least I can sit in that knowledge that I am a daughter of God, and He is asking me to raise these little tiny humans. And that is enough. And if that is not enough to bring you joy, to be like, I'm sitting in the will of God, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Amen. Did you have any closing thoughts on engagement for couples?
Can I read a quote that I found that I just really loved?
Yes.
It's Venerable Fulton Sheen. If you don't know much about him, he's spectacular. And I'm not like Brian. I can't memorize everything. Brian, you have the best memory in the world. I have to write these down. So this one says, when a man loves a woman, he has to become worthy of her. The higher her virtue, the more noble her character, the more devoted she is to truth, justice, goodness, the more a man has to aspire to be worthy of her. The history of civilization can actually be written in terms of the level of its women. So the higher you are, the more virtuous you are as a woman. And of course, men too. But women, if we set that standard and we say, no, I want a man who's going to treat me with respect and dignity, who's going to want my good, who's going to want me to go into the kingdom of heaven someday. If he's going to help me on that path, that journey, that's the man. If I can trust he's going to do what's best. Is he going to fail? Is he going to crumble sometimes? Yes. But for the most part, is he going to pick up that cross with me? Because he is not God. God is the only God. This man is here to be on this journey. And I remember thinking with Mike, he's on this journey with me toward heaven. He is not God, but he's with me to bring me to God. And so if you can find that man who does that for you, who wills that good for you, I that's all you can ask of God.
And we will finish up in a full circle from where we started with the final thing, is that engagement and marriage is for heaven. Your job as a married couple is to get each other to heaven. So are the actions, the talk, the movies, the books, the extracurricular activities you do, is it leading people, your spouse specifically, to heaven, and eventually your children? Are you leading them to heaven, or are you leading them away from heaven by your actions and your thoughts and all these other things? Our goal is to walk hand in hand with them forever to heaven, which is why we need to pray, which is why we need to plan together, prepare together, grow together, sacrifice together. I mean, literally, marriage is two people giving 100% of themselves, not 50-50. I hate when people say, oh, where's your other half? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Your wife. Oh, she's not a half. She's a whole person. So am I. It's like, we're not halves. We don't give half. We give whole and whole. Like she gives 100%. I give 100%. That's the ideal. Too many times in marriage, one person gives and the other person does not. That's not the way it should be, because then it just leads to many, many problems. So, pray, prepare, grow, sacrifice, make yourself better, and do the hard things that you need to do. Do that now. Find someone else who will do that. And the chances of having a very good marriage are on the up and up. They're high.
That's right. And the last thing to that, encourage one another. I've heard so many couples bringing each other down, whether they're dating, engaged, married, it doesn't matter. When you encourage your spouse and when you talk well of your spouse and you give them that honor and that dignity, it's going to be a game changer, because what you say to other people, what you're thinking about your spouse is that's kind of important, right? So if I'm constantly berating my spouse, telling them that they're worthless, if I swear at them, if I'm speaking ill of them to other people, that's not healthy. That's not gonna end well. So I really want to say, especially in dating and engagement, find a way to encourage one another and speak well of each other. That's going to be so important.
Amen. And I want to thank you, Julie, for coming on. I want to thank you for sharing the ups and downs of your marriage, the struggles, the joys, and everything. I think it's wonderful. I love your husband, and I think he's a wonderful guy. And you guys both work hard to get each other to heaven and to be the people that you're supposed to be. So, thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Brian. I always love this.
Thank you all for watching, and check out our other videos. If you want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly of marriage, check out our other videos with Julie Loin. God bless you.
Bye, guys.
So that was really long.
Well, you'll cut a little bit with the kiddos.
Yes, I will. Actually, that is true. But I want to record a second intro just in case. I might turn this into two parts. A first part and a second part. So I'm going to record a new intro and a new outro.
Perfect.
JIC, just in case.
Just in case.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of engagement advice, where we tell you pretty much everything you need to know to have a happy, healthy, holy, and fulfilled engagement, so that you can have a happy, healthy, holy, and fulfilled marriage for the rest of your life. And today we have back with us Julie Loin. Thank you for joining us, Julie.
Hey, everybody. I'm so glad to be back.
And we're so glad you're back too. In this second part, we're going to be continuing to give marriage advice and tips from the first one. If you haven't seen our first one, we will link it in the show notes below. Go back and watch it. And now I'm going to do the outro.
That was perfect.
So thank you again, Julie, for joining us in this episode. We always love having you on our show. And thank you all for joining us as well. Please check out our podcast notes below. Please check out our Facebook, our Instagram, our Pinterest, our TikTok, our Facebook, and everything else that we have. And our YouTube, our normal YouTube channel. It's all down below. If you would like to support our ministry, our PayPal and our Patreon are down below as well. If you would like Julie or myself or both to come in and give a talk to your church, your group, let us know. Check our website out at at catholictruth.org, catholictruth.org. God bless you.